Hello, and welcome to On the Irregular with me, Java Berry, a podcast where I chat to women from all walks of life about their own unique creative journey, how they got here, how their story has shaped their creative work, what they've learned, what has helped them, and where they plan to go from here. It's an irregular journey for so many of us, and I am delighted to offer a platform to share these fascinating stories and wells of wisdom. This week, I'm chatting to writer and life coach Nadia Karim. Nadia's rich journey includes a passion for photography, social justice, an ongoing theme of storytelling, and being one half of Edinburgh-based shop Century General Store. We had a long chat about empathy, acknowledging the depths of our differences, the value of being quiet, her journey as a writer and a storyteller, interrogating the attitude of one-size-fits-all to wellbeing, and her gentle approach to coaching. For more details on how Nadia works and how you can join her online community, please refer to the show notes. Welcome to episode 9 with the gentle, soothing and wise Nadia Karim. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'd really love it if you would like to start, because you grew up in Cumbria in the 80s.
That's right. Yeah, I grew up. Well, actually, firstly, thank you so much, Java, for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I really love your podcast. And it just feels like sitting, having a chat with a friend around your beautiful table. So I'm really happy to be here. Yeah, I grew up in Cumbria, and I have a lot of compassion, like self-compassion, looking back on that little black kid and my siblings, and my parents living in Cumbria in the 80s, and just how that was for us all. And for me, like, creativity was about, I suppose it began with writing and stories, and they were always an escape for me, like a happy escape from sort of real life. Like, I loved books and I loved writing stories, and I loved creating like little make-believe worlds for myself.
Yeah, it's something that, from what you sent me, that about you kind of your journey, your creative journey through your life, it seems to have always come back to stories in every aspect that you've explored.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, whether I've been working in cafes or which actually is one of my favorite jobs to do. I really love that connection with people, and you see the same people every day, like the people you're working with, and the regulars with all their little rituals. I find it so rewarding as a job. But yeah, like stories, just getting to know what makes people tick, and like really trying to understand that it's different for everyone, and that there's not a one size fits all kind of approach to life. I think that's something I was really aware of that as like from being a really young kid. So yeah, stories, and just being fascinated by people's stories, and helping people to tell their stories has been something over the past 10 years that's been kind of the focus of my creativity. And moving into as a life coach now, it's really about like helping people connect to so I call it connect to the radiance of your story. So whatever's gone on for you, whatever's going on for you, like there is good that you can connect to, and it's helping people tune into that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And from what you're saying about how you've always been interested in stories and about understanding that it's different for everybody, that sounds like a huge empathy and compassion, I suppose, which is, I think, what is also so powerful about stories, is that we do understand how universal our experience can be, but also how unique and particular it can be. And that's really lovely that you are now using that, like you said, in your coaching work, and to help other people tell their own stories. That's really powerful.
Yeah, and I think we have that in common, that empathy. And yeah, like, so for me, writing was always about connection. But I always had this feeling that like up until really recently, this feeling that like I was better on paper, like people would be disappointed if they met me in real life, and I wouldn't live up to it. And it's a really like deep story I had. And I think, yeah, so like coming out of that and realizing it actually, yeah, we have these universal experiences, but also it is different for everyone. And it's about like honoring that lived experience and just even saying like, all right, cool, like, oh, I didn't realize it was like that for you. It's not like that for me. Like, tell me more. I think that's such a good place to begin from. And it's just trying to make those little connections, like what do we have in common? Oh, cool, but you do this differently, or you experience the world in this way, or like your mind takes you to this place with your senses. And I think, yeah, holding space for that and acknowledging that just opens up, instead of shutting it down, like it just opens up this whole other way of communicating, like between friends, between partners, like between parents and kids, in society, like in everything. Just yeah, acknowledging that there are universal truths, but also like really seeing what's it like to be in your shoes, like what's it like to live in the world as you do. That's what I love.
Yeah, it's I think it's a very generous way of approaching a natural skill and interest that you have to then to, I suppose, to gift it to give it to others to help them. And it's just to pick up on something that you said about how you've always felt that you'd be better on paper and that people must be, you're worried that people would be disappointed when they met you.
Yeah.
A number of women I've spoken to who have said similar things about their creativity, their
Oh,
work.
wow.
And I wonder if it's because the pressure to be perfect, and you can edit your work, you can revisit it, you can, kind of decide how you want to be represented in your work. But when you
Yeah.
meet someone in person, it's unfiltered, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so interesting that that's a common theme.
Hmm.
And I think especially like amongst people who are perhaps identify as being quieter, um, there is it is difficult at times, like literally difficult to have your voice heard over, school and growing up as a quieter person. And I wonder how much that ties into it, but also like, yeah, what you said about that pressure to be perfect. And I mean, that's something that I just see so much people with people I coach and work with. They don't begin something because um it's it is that pressure for it to be perfect, or that pressure for them to be like an expert in something before they share it, even though they've been living that their entire lives. Like their lived experience qualifies as them as an expert in themselves.
Yeah, that's a really,
And
yeah.
yeah, and also like what you said about editing and revisiting with creative work. I kind of My whole thing is trying to help people to not feel like they have to edit themselves um to show up. And I know, like, for lots of us it can be really hard to show up every day or feel like you can show up every day, because you are kind of like, you may be having challenges with momentum, or you start something and then life happens, or the world is incredibly overwhelming, and so you stop and you never revisit it. And so it's kind of, yeah, like helping people to not edit themselves.
Yeah.
And that's been a big journey for myself. And I think I could only get to this point of like connecting and giving to others, like you mentioned, when I kind of stopped and had a look at what was going on for myself. Like, why don't I feel safe in these spaces? Or like, what do I need to give to myself to feel safe and feel comforted and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that word unfiltered, I love that. um and like tying it in with the creative process, like the idea of flow and just getting into something. I love the idea that you can do that in life. You can just go with it and just know, like, trust yourself that whatever happens, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, which is pretty hard a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I think it's possibly, it depends also on character. I think
Mm.
for some it's maybe easier than others, and also depending on past experiences. But that is
Yeah.
the goal, really, isn't it? To just, yeah, get into the state of flow, whether it be in your artwork or your writing, or whether it be in your life.
Yeah. And I guess like it's not about it always being easy as well. I think that that's, you know, like definitely my, like my childhood didn't feel it. It wasn't an easy environment to be a kid in, and I found it really difficult to, play and just be joyful. It wasn't. Yes, I think if you grow up in a house or like a culture where there's like maybe there's violence or there's trauma, or like you just don't feel safe to be yourself, or you feel like you can't kind of show parts of yourself, which is a lot of people's experience. And so you do edit yourself and you mask things, and it isn't easy to just shake that off. So I think it is like, yeah, the goal, like you say, is to get into this state of flow. But I think what I mean about that is that it's not expecting it every day to be the same, and like every day to be easy. Like being an artist, like some days you turn up, or being a writer, some days you turn up at your desk and like you've got nothing. Like you just got nothing. You don't have that inspiration. But it's like about bringing a bit of ease around that and being okay with that, and just allowing the day to be whatever it is. I think that's what flow means to me with like life and creativity.
Yeah, it's a very gentle, um,
Mm.
compassionate way of being with yourself, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, we have such high expectations of getting it right, and it being, and that, like,
Yeah.
figuring it out, and once you've figured it out, then you've kind of figured out the
Yeah.
formula, and
Yes.
you're done.
And
It's
you can
like,
repeat it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, people always go on about life hacks and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
it's like, well, I don't know. Sometimes you just
There's
got
too many variables.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes you've got to sit in the discomfort, and it's
Yeah.
as part of the process as anything else, really.
Yeah.
And so, can you tell me a bit more about, because you've had several different paths before, well, that have led you to where
Mm.
you are now, and is it, what, from what I read, like what we said earlier, the veins that go through this are stories,
Mm.
and how you've interpreted those in different ways, and how you've managed to incorporate stories into everything that you've done, and I guess also what has led your interest towards them, because you at uni did, was it international development and English?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So I at A level, I was never into science, and I've never been good at maths. Um, and so I always like gravitated towards like sociology and French and art. And also, I don't know if I was thinking about like family expectations, and um, I don't know if it's because I was the youngest that I was sort of like maybe let off the hook a little bit, and it was like, and also I always did a really good impression of just like everything's fine, I'm fine, I've got this. Like, I was very independent. So I kind of had a lot of freedom in what I wanted to study, which is brilliant. But I didn't follow my dreams. What I wanted when I was at college, I wanted to be a photojournalist or an art therapist, and didn't even fully really understand at that point what an art therapist did. But I knew that it was like a creative way of sort of helping people figure things out. Um, but at college, the career advisor kind of just with a little look kind of let me know that wasn't probably I don't know. I guess I was susceptible to that, picking up on that wasn't that was going to be a tough, like it wasn't a career, that's not a job, those kind of ideas that you pick up on. But yeah, but coming back to what you asked, like I always found a way to incorporate what I loved, like my creative loves, into whatever I was doing. So yeah, like even at school, I didn't find school easy, but outside of school as a teenager, I had this really rich, like I was really involved in making fanzines and like cutting up magazines and collaging, and like I had lots of pen pals. So I kind of had this other world going on creatively, and I loved that. And then at uni as well, I I kind of yeah, for my dissertation, I found a way to kind of weave in photography and make it about photography and photographic theory, which was what I really was interested in. So yeah, it's always been that kind of mixed media approach, I suppose, as well, and sort of like blurring the lines between like what what I was supposed to be doing, like what I was studying, and then what I loved, and bringing it all together.
It's very resourceful. And I was really taken by what an incredible drive you had to be so independently creative. Like, everything that you did on the side, like the life drawing and yeah, the photography, and somehow finding a way of weaving that into other stuff that you're doing. And there's an incredible. I think you put it so beautifully. That richness, like a real inner and really in a world that
Mm,
feels like it kind of helped carry you through life. Because
yeah.
I think that it's so valuable to have that, to be able to give yourself that time and put that energy into it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely that idea of being resourceful does resonate. Yeah, it was I guess I guess as well, like it's such a privilege to have been able to go to university. Um and at that point, like I think we're about the same age, and for our generation, like it was like I had jobs throughout uni. And then I was able to, there were grants and things, and there were hardship grants, and there were like I remember I got some funding to be able to do this photography course at community college, like separate to uni. So there was kind of a lot of creative resources available. And I'm not sure, well, I know that like that wouldn't be accessible to me now to go to university in England. And so it's just, I think that makes me really, really grateful for it, for
Yeah.
that experience, and like just really aware of trying to create spaces that are accessible for people who don't have access to that now, given how expensive it is. Um, yeah, and just that love of learning as well, I think really carried me through. I found like I always found the social side of anything difficult, like of school or uni, or like kind of the things that were meant to be really, really fun, and everyone else found really easy, and or not necessarily easy, but just like looked forward to. They were the things that kind of I found really difficult. So I think I was quite independent in like consciously, like intentionally finding that time and energy to do things in the evenings, or um, staying up late to be creative, that kind of thing.
And the interesting thing I think about being one of those quiet people who aren't always in the
Mm,
middle of the action, who are possibly observing, is that
yeah,
you pick up on so much, and then you then take that away and
definitely.
create with what you've observed, and that being always kind of on the sidelines, never quite in it.
Mm,
I think it gives you really quite a special perspective on life and the human experience, I think, in some ways.
yeah. Do you like relate to that for yourself?
Completely. I think I heard somebody describe it as an introvert pretending to be an extrovert, and I think that's probably what I am. I think I
Yeah.
was so shy,
Mm,
um, cripplingly so. I'd find it hard to walk down the street at points that
mm,
I think I ended up acting my way out of it. The only way that I could cope was to just
yeah.
pretend to be confident or an extrovert, and so, but I spent a lot of my childhood and early adolescence just sitting on the sides watching others,
Yeah.
and you pick up on so much. You see so much more when you're listening and you're not talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Yeah, totally. And actually, like now I make my living from listening to people. Like it's it's perfect. It's come full circle. Um, but it's yeah, that whole like I really that really resonates for me, that sitting on the sidelines and observing, and I think like, taking it to the bigger picture, like so much cool stuff like happens on the margins. And if you look at it in terms of like intersectionality and just like trying to pass the mic to different people from marginalized communities, like so they yeah talk about special perspectives. It's just I love hearing from the people that you don't usually hear from. I love holding space for them. I love seeing them like getting bolder and braver and feeling safe and to do what they've always wanted to do. Like yeah, I think I don't know if I mentioned that book
Yeah, quiet.
Quiet. Have
Yeah,
you read
I've
that?
not read it. I've heard of it, but I've added it to my list of books. So it was a
Oh,
game
so
changer
good.
for you.
Yeah, big time. I read it when not long after I became a mum, and it was like, oh right, oh okay, cool, right. It's not just me. It's like, and that's actually been a bit of a recurring theme with like, that feeling of when you read something for the first time and it really resonates with your experience. So like I had that with Quiet, that book by Susan Cain. And I also had it with Tender, which is a book by Penny Windsor, about her experience of caring for her disabled son. And that was the first book that I read that was written by another parent that I could relate to. Yeah, so it's just that when people share their stories, it's that sense of connection.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah,
can't remember your question, but you've gone off on a tangent.
So after you studied, you ended up going back to uni, didn't you, to study creative writing?
Yeah, I moved to Scotland, and I I guess like yeah, I was I suppose I was trying to do writing the right way. Um um
Because so you'd already been writing for a long time, and I guess you must have been doing a lot for people through you.
yeah.
Like you said, you were creating fanzines as a teenager, and so it's a big part of your
Yeah.
life.
It was always there. And actually it was a big part of my kind of family history on my mum's side. My
Mm.
granddad was like a prolific um writer of journals, like who every single thing was chronicled.
Oh
And
wow,
then
valuable to
yeah,
have
yeah,
that.
it's amazing. And then like on my dad's side, it was oral history, but there was that sense of sort of it never quite being like graspable, like
Mm.
um yeah, just that like because it wasn't written down, it was at risk of being forgotten. I think that's sort of the difference. And so I really valued like writing my own stories and keeping diaries, and then I suppose writing letters. And yeah, throughout my like teenage years and 20s, I did write a lot of sort of fiction for myself. And yeah, so I went on to do this master's MSc in creative writing, wanting to thinking like, right, this is the thing that's gonna make me like a writer. This is it. and and I yeah, I got a lot from it. It was great to be able to sort of have that set time and tasks to have to do. Um, and I also, at the same time, I was working in a for a women's charity, a big women's charity. So again, kind of like that, a kind of like mixture of creativity and sort of more practical stuff. Was quite separate.
Yeah, there seems to be like there's a strong line of, I guess, social responsibility through everything as
Yeah,
well. They seem to have always gone side by side. From
yeah, totally. Like, yeah, I studied the subject that I hoped would help me help people, right? At uni, and then yeah, with yeah, definitely that's a. I always felt that from being very little, that sense of what was of social justice and like wanting to make the world a better place, I think. And recently, like, tuning into all the things that I couldn't have known back then or couldn't have done when I was younger, but that I know now and I can like do differently now. I think that's a big part of what drew me to coaching. And just yeah, that like the ripple effect, the impact of um yeah, of lots of everyone doing their own little bit, like, and then coming together and sharing it, and the massive ripple effect of that on our generation and the next generation. And um that that really drives me, actually. Yeah. And so yeah, I did this creative writing masters, and I wrote a novel, and I'm still really proud of that. And actually, I just remembered when I was writing my notes for you that the main character was a photographer, which is a common theme in like my dissertation was about photography, and then this person's about photography, and it's about obviously like taking it literally. It's about how you see the world and perspectives, and so yeah, that's always really informed a lot of what I'm interested in. And but yeah, with the writing, I just got I just I couldn't get my head around the publishing industry side of it, and like I think it's probably changed a fair bit since then. It's a lot easier to self-publish now, but yeah, I always kind of felt like I didn't fit in to what was expected somehow. And I just wanted to write. I did not want to be like, I didn't want a picture out there. I didn't want to be visible. I just wanted to like write stories and then be done with it. And that's not really how being a successful author works. So yeah, but yeah.
Mm. And did you feel any more confident as a writer after having completed your MA?
That's a good question. I yeah, not really, in terms of like, I kind of believed in myself. Like, I always believed in myself. And it's that thing, it's like a bit of a, I suppose it's the bit, it's, you spoke about your shyness being crippling. And I think a lot of people in the past and maybe now would describe me as shy, but I don't relate to that. I'm not shy. It's a quietness, and it's kind of it's not like yeah, it's just a different way of sort of engaging with the world, like you said. And it's um I've completely lost my train of thought, but
I know. I think you're saying. I think that's
oh, did I believe in myself? Yeah,
yeah,
did it change the way I felt around myself as a writer?
yeah.
Um, no, actually, like, I met really lovely people on the course, and it was great to be in that creative environment again. But actually, if I'm honest, the people who inspire me the most are the ones who just sort of do it, who just, they don't need an excuse, they don't need a course, and they don't need a reason. They just make stuff, or they try stuff, or they um yeah, they're the people that really, really inspire me. Like, one of my really good friends lives in Sweden, and she's a knitter, and she um teaches craft to teenagers, and she's just so practical, and she's like has this really amazing respect for old things and the craft and preserving things. And that's the kind of thing that really inspires me, I think, when people do it, when people are creative, no matter what's going on for them, they find a way to do it because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like they can't not be true to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it feels like it comes from a very honest place, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's really authentic, and yeah.
I really like what you said earlier about how people would possibly describe you as shy, but
Mm.
you just interact with the world differently, you're just quite quiet. And I think it's so important to differentiate that, because I think it's it's highlighting, just because you don't always have something to say about something doesn't mean that you don't believe in what you have to say, or in your thoughts or in your feelings. and
Yeah.
and that, you know, I think that's so valuable, because we're so often in a society where the people who are confident and who are loud and who speak the loudest and are assertive, we
Yeah.
assume that they have the authority because they believe in what they're saying. But that is just, that's
Yeah.
possibly, they are possibly like that, but it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that. And the same with being quiet. Just because you're not speaking your thoughts or expressing your opinion all the time doesn't mean that you don't have it or that you don't trust in it. I think
Yeah.
that's a really valuable thing to remember, actually, and about the assumptions that we make about each other and about others. That's, well,
Yeah. And yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like, well, for me, the word shy, it's always a negative thing, like, oh, she's so shy. Oh, you know, but actually there was and I see this in lots of other people that I know, I know a lot of people with quite recent ADHD diagnoses. And it's I think that, like, now as an adult, and everything that I've learned about neurodiversity especially, um there are reasons why people might be quiet as well. Like, we all experience the world so differently on, like, a sensory level. um and I think that for our generation, a lot of what we're doing is like unlearning, and like trying to not compartmentalize things as much as, so shy is bad, quiet is bad, and quiet isn't as valuable. And it's like, yeah, just helping people to honor the needs as well, like what might be going on if someone is really quiet in a busy environment. Like, are they okay? Is there anything you can do to support them? If yeah, like, just having that awareness that people perceive the world differently and experience it differently. And that's been really eye-opening to me, for myself, and for, like, everyone that I've come into contact with as well.
yeah. And the value of the skills that that person might have, that
Yeah.
also, so we need all the variety of skills, for community and for the world to run, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think so often, like specifically thinking about neurodiversity, the it's always on the neurodivergent person to adapt, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have a friend who's deaf, and it's like it's always up to the deaf person to adapt in the hearing world. And I suppose, like, some of the work that I try to do is switch to shift that as well. And, like, with coaching, it's about, it's not starting from the point of view that everyone is sort of this in a box, in the same box, and that then you adapt the box. It's not that. It's just starting from the point that, cool, all right, what do you need to be able to turn up every day? What do you need from me to be able to, like, attend this Zoom session? Or How can I make it easier? Like, what needs do you have? Instead of it being like, what additional needs do you have? It's not adapting it. It's beginning with this kind of idea that everyone has unique needs, and what are yours? And normalizing that conversation. You know, like, do you need captions? Do you need yeah. I mean, actually, I say that, but obviously from my son's and my point of view of being neurodivergent, it is additional needs. So maybe that's not the right choice of language, but I think what I'm getting at is that it's specifically, like, from coaching, it's the perspective that it's you need to, I think like it's really important to me to explicitly say, like, on my website that this is what I can do, like, if you need it. I think it's just saying it out loud so that people don't have to be the ones asking all the time, or feeling like, oh, they're another person who hasn't acknowledged that, or, oh, they didn't even think about that, you know. It's just like kind of opening that dialogue and making it there for everyone.
Yeah.
And also learning as well, and like being okay with getting it wrong, I think, and trying better next time. I think that's something that's really important to me throughout everything.
Yeah. And so how, because you were working at this women's charity, and then you were working freelance as a writer for 10 years.
Yeah.
And doing quite a variety of jobs in that kind of umbrella of writing.
Yeah.
And then how did then Century General, like, I'd love you to tell me more about the writer, but then how did that then turn into Century General Store, which you ran with your partner, didn't you?
So I was kind of like, for a long time, working in cafes and doing the odd, like, proofreading, copywriting work, and then about 10 years ago, became just kind of full-time freelance writing. Like you say, it was really diverse, and I did wrote projects for, like, universities. I created resources around wellbeing and editing and creativity. There was one, I remember one, it was about like, you know, it's 4 a.m. the day before, like 4 a.m. the day before your dissertation's due, and you are panicking, and like, you have to hand something in, and it was kind of talking people through that editing process and helping them to find, like, their voice within all of the academic stuff. And then also, it was tied in with well-being, so it's kind of always been this common theme. And then I helped a women's charity, a domestic abuse charity, helped create a book telling the stories of women who'd survived that. So Century General Store was opened in 2014, and I was kind of just in the background doing the, I suppose, like, the less glamorous side of running a business. And Stevie was working in the shop and front of house, and like, his skill set is very much being with people, and all of the things that are my worst nightmares, like a whole day full of lots of loudness and busyness. He absolutely loves that. And so I was in the background, like, doing website stuff and writing, and you know what goes into running a business. It's not it's not just the cool, the cool pretty stuff. And then the pandemic happened, and it was just like this massive, gigantic shift that everything, like, I know everything changed for everyone, but it's like everything just was completely upended. And it was the start of like a real period of growth for both of us, like separately, together. And I was thinking about this recently. Like one of my words, my whole life, like one of my words was hope. Like I was like obsessed with the word hope, and it's kind of the meaning of my name in my dad's language. And I was so tied to this word, like, oh, I'm so hopeful. I'm such an optimist. And then recently I was kind of thinking like, yeah, it doesn't really, I don't like that word so much anymore. I want to choose trust, and I want to choose belief, and like especially the world as it is now. Yeah, I don't want to just hope. I need more than that. And so it's
And I
like
guess
about,
with hope, in a way, it suggests that there's no resolve or resolution.
yes,
It's so open-ended.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's much more certainty with belief, and it means you can really like dive into something, I think, for me. So yeah, I think like trust, and there was a lot of trust kind of severed during like the start of the pandemic, in terms of just everything. Yeah, it was a real journey to beginning to trust again. And so when that happened, like for a bit of context, our son had been at a childminder one day a week, and that had been something we'd been building up to for years, and we'd finally kind of got this, found this amazing childminder who understood autism. And if anyone's listening with parents with like disabilities, they'll know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure you understand as well. It's just when you find that, it's really hard when it's taken away. So we were kind of, yeah, finding our feet a lot, and moving house a lot. And one of my things that I always try and do is kind of, if I can't find the thing that I need, I'll create it. Like I'll try and make it for myself and for my people around me. Because I figure, well, if I need it, someone else needs it too. And what I really needed at the start of the pandemic was to feel connected to people. I felt so isolated and needed to feel connected to people. So we started, we kind of, yeah, started putting together care packages, and doing just different things to try to connect with people in a different way. And I started speaking. I started writing all the social media posts for Instagram, and I'd kind of done it in the past, but I'd always done it in either in third person, or like written it as though it was Stevie, because he was like the face of everything.
Right.
Um, and so it was really like, talk about, owning your story. It was really um me slowly starting to kind of like write more about well-being, and about um yeah, just trying to connect with people. And then
Yeah, and I think that's what um, has always stood out for me about Century General stories, that it's felt so much more than a shop. It's felt like there's been a real emphasis and a kind of a core mission for, yeah, for caring and
yeah,
well-being and reaching out, and like you said, connection. And of course, because everything that is chosen, and it's so curated with a very strong ethos and about where everything comes from, and in the environmental impact. But I think your message of care comes across so clearly. Um, it's very unique.
thank you so much. I feel like that about your work. So it's really great to hear. Thank you. Yeah, like yeah, I think we always wanted to make it about more than the products. Um, so I'm really glad that comes across. Yeah, that idea of care is really just like, yeah, based on a basic level, like we needed to feel cared for, and so we gave it to other people in the way that felt like something we could do with the energy we had. And part of that was sharing about things like slow living and mindfulness and things that were part of our life over the past few years, part of my life, and just trying to connect with people about that. And I think it's like anything. It's like the more you share and the more positive feedback you get, the more you do it. So kind of, it's like receiving messages from people saying like, wow, this is me, or yeah, I really relate to that. It's such a powerful thing when you start to share your story, especially when you've kind of spent a long time thinking it's just you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like and then in the summer of 2020, with being a Black person in the UK, it just took it to a whole other level of yeah, like talking about trust again. And it was it's a weird time. And I think just seeing that ripple effect of like what happens when someone speaks out, and like that's really, really stayed with me actually. And I get so inspired by other people's courage and creativity, and like discovering people who are talking about mental well-being, or like talking about the barriers that they face. It was the first time that I'd had that openly in my life, and like in my inbox every day. And yeah, at times it was overwhelming, but it just felt like part of a bigger picture. And yeah, like a lot of, I think I just said this before, but a lot of what I do is kind of, it's like showing myself compassion. Like, okay, you were young then and you didn't know that, and you fucked up, and you didn't speak out, but now you're an adult, like you're a parent, and you kind of, you can do this. Like, you don't need anyone's permission to do it anymore. um so yeah, it was, being part of Century was just, it was a really, it's a really beautiful business, continues to be a really beautiful business that I'm not involved with anymore, and it's been hard to say goodbye to. But yeah, it's I just feel like it's really needed in the world, that combination of yeah, you can buy beautiful things that are made sustainably, and you can also, it can be more than that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, completely. It's, yeah, like I said, it's very unique. Um, and so was it during this time then that you started realizing, because you've gone, like you said, you kind of gone through your own personal, emotional, mental journey, and I think you mentioned something as well about inhabiting your body more and
Yeah.
playing in your body, um, and so this was that kind of also partly what led you to, I mean, everything that you've done, it feels like such a natural progression to what you're doing. But then I guess, like you said, the last couple of years have been really, really quite something for everybody, and
Yeah.
specific in your case. And so to now lead you to coaching, when
Yeah.
did you have a moment of, right, this is what I need to be doing?
Yeah, it wasn't like that at all, actually. It wasn't like that at all. I was so resistant to my Sarah, Dr. Sarah Madigan, who is a friend whose coaching program training that I went on to do for 8 months. She's a clinical psychologist. She was a clinical psychologist, and she now works as a coach, as a transformational coach. And her energy is absolutely incredible. And she is definitely one of those people who, her mission is for joy domination. That's her kind of her tagline. She's like the joy queen. And like, talk about triggering my introvert quiet self. I was so resistant to everything that she put into the world. I had loads of friends who were doing her courses, her shorter courses, like I basically thought it was a cult. I was so I was so scathing, and I've been open with Sarah about this, like I was so resistant to it. I think what it was just like, why are these people so happy? Like, why are they so happy? Like, what is it? What's the deal here? I didn't trust it. Why are they so playful? Like, and yeah, so Sarah approached me to help about would I be interested in working with her to edit her book. She was writing a book on like how she transformed her relationship with anxiety to something that she could now live with, rather than being completely debilitating. So I took it on as just another proofreading, editing project, and I was excited about it, obviously, because her story is fascinating, and it felt quite serendipitous because it was at a time when I had been reading a lot of the psychology, neuroscience, trauma, all the fun stuff, all the fun books that you kind of dive into when you're on that journey. So I knew the language, I knew the context, I knew who she was quoting, I knew the books, and yeah, and we started working on her book. I think it was in 2020, maybe like September time. And pretty soon I realized I had to have a conversation with her. It was like really, really difficult for me. So I had been editing books, like I said, for pretty much 10 years, and I never, ever, ever saw myself reflected in it. I never saw people of color. I never saw experiences that were not easy childhoods, if you want to use that phrase. And I was just feeling, I think I was just feeling especially brave. And I said, look, Sarah, I really want to be involved. I love what you do. I love what you believe in, but I can't put my name to this. Like it doesn't relate to me in the world. And I was pretty convinced that she would just kind of say, okay, cool, I'll find another editor, and not have that difficult conversation. Like I wouldn't have been surprised, fair enough. But she didn't, and she came around, and we had this really big conversation about anti-racism and about all kinds of things to do with intersectionality, and the book is so much better for it. Like I am so proud of it. It's got chapters by different people with different lived experiences, and then Sarah's beautiful experience as well. And it's just this, and it really kind of interrogates the this one size fits all kind of approach to well-being as well. And I'm really, really proud of having that conversation, and of how I'm really excited by how Sarah like responded to it. And so that, I think that set the foundation for just like so much trust in her as a person I could train to be a coach with. And so yeah, at this point I still wasn't I wasn't entirely convinced that it was for me. But my a close friend invited me to do like a 4-day course within Sarah's community, and it was free. And at that time I had a bit of free time, and I just didn't have a reason to say no. And I think I was kind of like, oh God, I'll just do it and I'll get it over and done with, and then they'll get off my back. Like it was definitely one of those situations. And I did it, and it was like just something about being around other people talking about things after being so isolated was just really, really powerful. And I ended up making an arrangement to do her coaching school, to train as a coach. So that's how I got into it. And even at the beginning of the training, I still felt like an outsider, like I didn't belong, which was bullshit. But you have to be in it to realize it. And as the months went on, I just realized, like, shit, this is kind of what I do anyway. This is like, this is my thing. I didn't realize there was a job doing this. So yeah, that's how I got into coaching, and I just absolutely fell in love with just like helping, just holding space for people, not trying to rescue them, like not trying to make them feel better, just like letting them be, and letting people bring whatever they needed to bring, and just being compassionate and without judgment. Yeah, that's what I love about it.
Wow, it does sound very, because I mean, I don't really have an extensive knowledge on coaching or life coaching, but it sounds like a very gentle, again, compassionate way of coaching, because I guess, it's easy to conjure like somebody by your side kind of cheering you on, which, is valuable, is really valuable, but I can see how that could potentially be quite intimidating as well at times. Whereas what you were just saying about just holding space for people, and I guess allowing them to feel seen and heard, is extremely powerful.
Yeah, and also it really helped me, like going back to what we were saying about being quiet, like it really helped me to realize that was actually like my magic, and being like really exuberant and loud and joyful was other people's magic in the group as well. And I think I remember there's been a couple of times where as you practice coaching on each other within the group, and there was one morning, it was like a tag team coaching of Sarah, and so it was in front of everyone as well, and there was two other people and then me, and the two people before me were I suppose like extroverts, and just really their energy is completely different to mine, and I remember thinking like, oh shit, they're gonna find out. I'm gonna find out I can't do it. I'm too quiet. I'm too quiet. I am too like whatever. I'm too intense and I'm too quiet. And everyone's gonna see. And actually, it was such a valuable learning experience, because I realized that like their loud energy and got like had one effect, and helped the person who was being coached to access one thing, and then like my quieter energy helped the session to go somewhere different, and it was that, like, actually seeing that juxtaposition of my quietness next to other people's loudness, and like not judging it as less, not judging it as negative, was I think probably like first time in my life I'd done that, and it had been a positive experience. So yeah, like definitely there's there'll be people who are drawn to me who wouldn't be drawn to other people, and then likewise like other coaches who I would never, like everyone has their own people, who make them feel safe or contained or grounded or whatever it is. It's like looks like different things to different people.
Yeah, it's just made me think about what you were saying about how when you spoke to your careers advisor, and one of the things you wanted to be was an art therapist, and you weren't quite sure what that entailed, but
yeah,
it wanted to be, and you were pretty spot on. Like, not exactly, but you had the ballpark is.
Yeah, I know. It's funny, isn't it, how you know yourself, like you know yourself when you're 17 or whatever, or 15 or yeah, it's yeah, I think as well, like the idea of life coaching, I just thought was hilarious as a profession. I just thought it was like a total joke. And like from watching like Ricky Lake as a kid or whatever, a teenager, just like, what is that? Like, who are these people? So yeah, and also the other thing as well, like I think it all ties in with this idea of like safe spaces. You know, it's such a common phrase that you hear, like, oh, this is a safe space, but actually that's not a given. That's not, you can't just like say that and make that means it's true. Like you have to really work to create trust and like to help people to feel like they can be themselves. Like, and I just think it's such a privilege when, and such an honor to kind of be there for people in that capacity, to listen to them. It just feels like such a privilege.
It feels like a really perfect kind of, I guess, way of you using all of your natural interests and passions and to bring out stories in people and to help them feel heard and to help them own that. And you have to take your own journey to get there, I guess.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have been in a position to help anyone before because I hadn't figured out, I didn't understand any of the things about myself that were making it so hard to be seen and to be heard and all of that. And so it's like an ongoing journey, isn't it? And it's also as well, it's not pretending to always have the answers and to be like this unmessy human who's like always sorted. It's not that. It's just, it's like allowing it and being yourself. And yeah.
And so so the clients approach you, what kind of things might they be looking for in terms of, when they think they need a life coach? Is it personal life? Is it career? Is it just open?
Yeah, it tends to be a mixture. A lot of the times the thing that someone thinks is the big, the main focus ends up being not, it's something different. And a lot of it is to do with wanting to like for a lot of people, it's, they know that they want to be creative, or they know that they have this creative part of themselves, and maybe they also have other commitments or other jobs, and it's trying to help them to get to a point where they believe in themselves enough to really go for what they want to do, and to not need permission to do it, to trust themselves. And a lot of the times it's to do with visibility and being scared of being seen, and also a lot of the time to do with momentum, like sustaining momentum. Like it's often easy for us all to begin things, and then how do we keep showing up, and also just like showing up as yourself, like not leaving bits out, feeling like you can be feeling like the same person at work as you are at home, feeling like you're the same person with this group of people as you are with your family, and kind of, does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess it's similar to what we were talking earlier about the unfiltered you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you can be more, just even across. You don't have to have versions. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, yeah. And so this may be a foolish question, but what's the difference between, say, being a therapist and a life coach? Is it more practical? Are you like not to the depths of someone's psyche, or?
Yeah, I'd say like it's different for every every therapist or every coach, depending, because I know that a lot of people that I am training with, that I trained with, are therapists as well. They're CBT therapists in the NHS or mental health nurses. There's definitely a crossover of people who are drawn to like both professions or both areas. And for me, the big difference is coaching focuses on psych from the present to the future. So obviously you are holding space for the person's past and anything that they bring, but you're speaking to the part of, you're speaking to the person who believes that change is possible, the part of the person who believes that change is possible and that has dreams and that wants, it's coaching. I don't think coaching is not for people who are in crisis or who need psychiatric support or who need mental health support. It's really different in that respect. I think like someone referred to it as if you were at the bottom of a mountain, like wanting to climb a huge mountain, the therapist would be like, if you needed a doctor to help you get up the mountain, that would be the therapist. And if you needed a guide, that would be the coach. So that's kind of, in my mind, that makes sense, the distinction. And it's a completely different training and skill set. The skill set is there's a lot of overlap, but I think one thing that's really important to me is to be trauma informed as a coach, and that's not something that everyone, that's sort of something that's important to me, but might not be to another person. So yeah, I think it's about bringing all your experience and bringing your like areas of interest and expertise, and also just being really transparent about what you can offer to someone and what you can, and when therapy might be what they need. And just it's just the coach-coachee relationship is about it's an equal relationship. It's not a power imbalance, and so someone has to really be turning up willingly and wanting to be there, and that's when it works, when it really works. And also, bear in mind, if you ask someone who's been coaching or been a therapist for 20 years, they might have a totally different opinion and view. And so that's just very much my take on it. It's the focus on what can I do now. That's what coaching is.
Yeah.
And actually it's really interesting, because I think I was so resistant to the idea of coaching, because I was not at that point when people in my life were sort of like waxing lyrical about it, and I was seeing other people exploring what it was. I was not in a position to receive it. I needed like real in the thick of it help. I didn't need to be kind of I didn't need what coaching can offer. So yeah, it's up to the individual, like what feels right for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people as well, it's creative people who I work with, creative people who are feeling stuck and who want more, and who need a helping hand to just hold them accountable and keep them going.
Yeah, it can be a huge battle as a creative.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I already know the answer to this, but do you find it fulfilling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing I've ever done.
Without
a doubt.
It sounds like it.
And as well, like, I think it's I always like, my biggest worry was that kind of around like self-development stuff in general, but that it would make me apathetic and that I would just stop caring about the world and I would opt out. And it's, yeah, that was my biggest fear about doing it. And what I'm finding is that it's the opposite. It's the thing that helps me sustain momentum to keep showing up in the world, and like to keep helping people and to keep showing up for people. And just, it's just like I said before, like that ripple effect of helping people to get quiet with themselves and like tune into that intuitive part of themselves. Like the goods that can come from that in the world, the ripple effect is huge. And I absolutely love that moment where maybe you ask a question that is like an intuitive question during a coaching session, and the client says like, oh wow, I've never thought about it like that before. And it opens up possibility. I think that's what coaching is. It's opening up and exploring possibilities that you had never considered. And yeah, that's what I love.
That sounds fascinating, and like full of surprises as well.
Yeah, definitely. And also it's about like surrendering that it is not up to me to like decide what a session is going to be like. It's, it is up to the person to come as they are on that day, like exactly as they are, and to meet them as they are. And like you say, like that is, yeah, the surprises. um and I think as well, it's like, for me, it's just a commitment to keeping on reading, keeping on learning, and keeping on being open, and try to be as transparent as possible about like what I don't know and what I do know and what I want to learn. And yeah, kind of just trying to model it as well. Like I've also obviously found ways to incorporate writing into my business. So my business is called Everyday Writes, with it like WRITES, and it's I guess the thinking behind that comes from like everyone has the right to show up as themselves in their life every day. It's like a basic right. And so I make newsletters and I write mini guides, and have this like a kind of a secret page where if you sign up and subscribe to my community, you kind of get access to all these downloads and resources that I hope are really helpful, and kind of just show how I try to practice what I preach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was wondering, because I was looking at your website and I was thinking how lyrical in a way it was. Like it was so lovely. You had so much to say, and I felt like you were giving so much. You're very generous with explaining what you do and your approach and where you come from. And I think that's incredibly valuable. When you're considering possibly, yeah, taking on a coach, working with a coach about a project. Because like what you said, I think, of course, it hadn't occurred to me, and I don't know why, but of course each person is going to need a totally different style of coach. There's not one size that fits all. And yours is your, like, the way that you talk about what you do, and like you saying all this information and literature that you send out, it gives a very full picture.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm just laughing when you said it was like, full. I'm laughing because I'm like literally surrounded by pages of notes that I've written for this podcast. I cannot write one line. So yeah, it was always going to be a novel on the website. Yeah, I think as well, it's like just showing it in action, or showing what the end results are for people. I think that's it. And a lot of it is about, a lot of the work with people that I work with is around boundaries and saying no, and like tuning into joy. And I think we touched on it earlier, but I didn't really answer. Is about like reconnecting with your body, and sort of like learning to actually live in your body, and feel your feelings and work through them, move through them. And yeah, so like sharing what that looked like for me, I hope it's helpful to people. Yeah, hoping that people will share theirs, even if it's not with me. Just that hopefully, because it's that thing, isn't it, as well, you know, people are like, I definitely lurk on on things without ever commenting, or you know, like I'm sure we all do that. We're there, we like deeply respect this person, or we love what they stand for, or like we've got it on a list of, if we ever go to that city, we're going to that bookshop. Like, you know, we respect people, and without ever actually connecting with them, like in person. So I hope, like, even if, you know, if someone never ever like joins the mailing list, never ever listens to a podcast I'm on or anything like that, but they're like, oh cool, like she looks like me, or oh, I've been through that, or you know, that kind of like seeing yourself reflected, or like, oh, she finds creativity like difficult in the way that I do, or whatever. It's just like being seen, isn't it? And I love the way you do it. I just like, it's so holistic, you know. It's your food, and like the way you're a mother, and your home, and like your illustrations, and everything is just, it's like inimitable.
Oh, thank you.
And that's, you know, like, yeah, that's what it's all about, right? Like, that's, if everyone is connected to that amazingness about themselves, it's not selfish, it's actually like where you can operate from, like with compassion and with empathy, and because you're honoring your own needs, you're like seeing yourself as a unique person, and that means you can see other people as unique people. Yeah, I think it's underrated, that just sharing everyday life. I think it's really powerful.
It's been so beautiful listening to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for creating this beautiful space, and everything you do, and also just for sharing your story so openly in your blog. And yeah, it's wonderful, and it's also not often that you get a chance to just talk about creativity for like an hour and a half, and also like it just connect. You know, I really recommend to anyone, like, write out your story, like just in bullet points, like write out the things that you love, and you'll see the patterns that you maybe didn't even realize were there. And
Yeah, it's funny. I've spoken about that to a couple of the guests for this upcoming season have mentioned that, about how much they've enjoyed actually writing out their kind of their journey, their path, and it's been quite an eye opener for them. And like you said, they've seen patterns and things, highlighted things that they hadn't maybe registered, and definitely, it's like mining your past, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, selective mining, I suppose.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely.
I love it. I love it. I feel so honoured that that people feel comfortable to talk to me about their stories, and I learn something every single time. And somebody said something recently, actually, a former guest. She said every time I listen to every conversation, said I learn something about myself from the person. I thought, what a fascinating and wonderful thing to take away.
Yeah. And podcasts are kind of magic. They're just sort of there in the background, and yeah, they really affect you, listening to people's stories.
You have such a beautiful voice, Nadia.
It's because I was quiet for so long. I'm just kind of happy to be speaking.
You can find Nadia online at everydayrights.com. Please head to the show notes for more details on how Nadia works and to join Nadia's Radiant Folk online community by subscribing via her website. Thank you so much for listening to On the Irregular. Please make sure you review and subscribe as it helps other listeners find us. It truly does make a difference.